Well, I was very, very excited to receive this envelope that I ordered from the Children's Aid Society of Toronto. It goes back many, many years to 1961 when I was released into the world upon graduating from Shaw's Business College on Yonge Street in Toronto in June. It was a month after my 17th birthday on May 14th. And I received this in the mail on Saturday evening upon returning home from a 4-day holiday. I call it a holiday, but I was really cat sitting and house sitting at my daughter's house. And so here I am. The letter was dated May 14th, 2018, which was last Monday. And it was to me, Heather Hopkins, and it was sent to me, and this is the gentleman that sent it to me, Michael Payne, Children's Aid Society of Toronto, Legal Department, Disclosure Services, Child and Family Disclosure Unit, 30 Isabella Street, 5th floor, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, with a fax number. Now, I'm going to have to fax and sign that I received this confidential information from the Children's Aid Society, and it's just one page that I sign and date when I received it. Well, the 19th, the day the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married. So it's a special day to not only see the royal wedding, but the day Heather Hopkins received, I call it the foster kid file, but of course that's just my nickname. Now, because I was in foster care at the time, it was the government that paid for my business college at Shaw's Business College. And here I am, age 17, being released into the real world by the Children's Aid Society. They said, "We can't support you anymore. You'll have to quit high school and choose a trade. Do you want," the social worker asked me, "do you want to become a nurse or a hairdresser or work in the secretarial field?" Well, you know, I was only 16 years old and living in a foster home. They were nice foster parents. There was no abuse or anything. They were just very nice people who had adopted two little boys. So they were average people in a nice subdivision in Thornhill, Ontario. And I went to Thornhill Secondary School, or Thornhill High School. And in those days, academic education consisted of going from grade 9 to grade 13. And so here I was. I had missed a year in grade 6, so I was only in grade 9 at that point. Maybe I was 15 when I started grade 9 in 1959. And then by the time I finished grade 9, that is when the social worker said, "We can't support you until you finish grade 13. And if it was a commercial course, you finished at grade 12. They didn't want to support me any longer. They wanted me to go to a trade school. So they asked me, "Do you want to go to nursing school?" I guess there was a practical nursing course or something. It wouldn't have been a very lengthy course. They would support me for 10 months and that's it. And then you're out on your own. You can support yourself. You've got a trade. That's it. That's the way it was. I was lucky to get that because if you go back another generation, women didn't even work. They just stayed at home and got married and had a big family. I've been doing ancestry genealogy, ancestry.ca, Canada, Ancestry.com USA, and the DNA and all this stuff. So I've been quite busy doing all this stuff. And then I thought, well, gee whiz, I was a foster kid. Why don't I phone and see if I can find out more about myself when I was a kid? Because I had a very upside down, unusual, unique type of childhood, which is no longer a secret, by the way. But at age 74, see, May 14, 2008, they typed this letter on May the 14th, 2018, which is a week ago today, the day I turned 74. And it doesn't matter about my address because I live in a manufactured home and I've been evicted. So if there are any people out there that want to come and do me in or rob me, there's no point because, I'm one of these people that has struggled all their lives. And it all started out with graduating from business college. And that's why I chose business college, because I liked Perry Mason and Della Street. So I chose business college. I've been telling this story to my children to the point where they don't want to listen anymore because it's all repetitive, right? And I've just told my good friend in not far from where I live on the phone all about these days. And, I don't think she'll want to hear the story twice. So I just thought, Judith, what I'll do is I'll do up a video and I'll tell you that way. And anytime my children want to listen to this video, they can. But it says in the body of this letter, it's got a date of birth, May 14, 1944, off to the right. And it says, Dear Ms. Hopkins, and Heather Benita Hopkins, because that's the middle name my mother gave me upon my birth on Mother's Day in 1944. I was born on Mother's Day. I was my mother's very first child. And it says, in response to your request for disclosure, dated February the 26th, 2018, please find enclosed a redacted, I think that word means condensed, copy of the Children's Aid Society of Toronto's case. CAST, they call it CAST now instead of CAS, Children's Aid Society, I don't know what, of Toronto, CAST, that's good, Children's Aid Society of Toronto. So there's been a name change since 1961. And the records regarding the society's involvement with you, Heather Benita Hopkins. Well, please be advised that this record has been vetted for third-party information and redacted at the society. Does not release information about individuals without their consent. So I had to consent to this. I think I paid with my credit card to get the photocopies. It's quite a thick file, and I haven't even looked at it yet. And I wanted somebody to be with me because there's a lot of emotional stuff here and photos and all kinds of stuff I see. I just did this now, as you see, and I see that they've included, there's a photo. There's another something or other that they've taken from a microfiche at the societies. I have been doing filing all my life, working and doing stenography and, changes over the many years. And I can call myself an antique secretary now. This is 2018, not 1961. A lot of years since I learned how to type. So it says here that all this stuff was scanned on March the 13th. So that's when they started working on my file. That's interesting, isn't it? And this is it says here, to whom it may concern, 26th of February 2018, I remember doing this now on the with PDF files and email. I hereby give my consent for the CAS of Toronto to search for any information on my behalf so I may have a history of my life for my children. That's what I told them. I wanted my children to know about my life. And they've heard this story over and over the years. They're sick of it. You know, even my youngest daughter has heard the story, and she said, "Mom, I've heard that story. I know you were a foster kid." But I wanted them to see it in black and white. I wanted them to see it. And, you know, and also I see that many young teenage children nowadays are, the same thing is still happening. I mean, it shouldn't be happening because this is 2018. It's not 1961 when I was thrown into adulthood at the age of 17. While in the big city of Toronto, you know, you can't, it's like a puppy lost in the big city, you know, that they're puppies, the teenagers, right? And I'm sorry, but it's very emotional and very serious. When I see things on the TV that I see nowadays, I watch the news. I watch CTV News. And I live in Vancouver, 3,000 miles away from Toronto, but in my long-term memory, I can go back to Toronto. I don't have to go in a jet plane and fly back to Toronto. It's all up here. In my mind, Heather Hopkins' brain, 74-year-old brain, has a long-term memory. I can transport myself back to Toronto in 1961. I can do that. I don't know. I didn't think I had the power. I've been working for the same company for 20 years, and I really didn't have the time to delve into the dark corners of my mind and dig out all these skeletons. But maybe this is a skeleton in my closet, a secret that I shouldn't tell anybody because I wanted so much to be loved and accepted and be normal, part of the normal. Like all my friends had families, my aunt, my cousins had my mother's sisters and brothers, and they had a good life. I thought back then they had life so much easier than me. Always felt sorry for myself and embarrassed, and it was horrible, you know. And the people that touched my life back then were very wealthy Jewish people. I respect them and never forgot them. If I wish I could contact them. I tried to in 1988. I knocked on the door of Mr. and Mrs. Jack Wolfe in Toronto, where I used to live on Briar Hill Avenue, just down the street from the famous Lorne Green. He lived in the apartment on the corner. It was the new part of Forest Hill, which is the very ritzy, wealthy area. That was where I would live as a nanny, a sort of nanny. You know, she had a housekeeper, Mrs. Wolfe, that came in and did the cleaning. And I was quick tidy-ups and help her prepare salad and set the table. And in exchange, I would have my own room, and I could go there with my friends, walk to school on Yonge Street to Shaw's Business College, which was upstairs. And I don't know what stores were downstairs, but we used to go for coffee across the road somewhere. I don't remember those details, but I do remember that horrible instructor, Mr. Cameron, maybe, or it was an old man with a stick. And if we didn't sit straight with our feet flat on the floor at this business college, you know, you got whacked across the back with this stick, this poker, wood, like a conductor on an orchestra, but longer. And he would just whip us very, very hard to sit straight and keep your feet flat on the floor. little bit different than high school.